Hi guys, Ramsey here. Welcome back to another video. Today it's going to be a Chanel family portrait, and it is Christmas Eve, so this is a Christmas Eve special. I hope you guys are enjoying these. Again, just real quick, my thought on this was to give you guys a feel of my collection, so maybe you can narrow down which ones you wanted me to focus on when I start doing reviews. But if you've watched some of my previous videos, you know that there is a trend that's evolving. And that's that I am very forgetful. So whatever the last video was, if you want to see more of that house, just go to the next one because I inevitably forget one. And that's the case with this. And what I forgot from the Dior video was Mitza. And I have a 30 ml decant, and that's why it wasn't with the other Chanel's. But this is one of the less exclusive line. And this fragrance is almost like a fragrance of two parts to me when I wear it, because for some reason in the beginning I get this heavy cumin note, almost like I just sprayed Fate Man. It's like Fate Man mixed with Ambre Sultan or L'air du Desert Marocain. That, you know, I don't see many people mentioning this cumin note. It's not listed in Fragrantica. I guess it could be a mixture of maybe like the coriander and cardamom at the top, giving off that cumin type smell. But I get heavy Fate Man references in the opening, and then it changes and evolves into this, you know, spicy amber fragrance that you would expect from something like Mitza. I enjoy it. I think I prefer wearing Ambre Sultan a little bit more because it doesn't have that, you know, cumin note in the opening. It's just a weird mixture of notes, to be honest with you. But I'm glad to have a decant. It's one of those that you have to fly to Paris to buy or something, you know, crazy things that these houses are doing with some of these fragrances nowadays. So again, for my collection, 30 ml Dior Mitza, more than enough, and very happy to have it. So that finishes out the Dior collection. Before we get on to Chanel, I want to share a scent of the day with you guys. I haven't been doing this with my videos just because I don't want to kind of mix the two worlds, but this is a fragrance that I really love this DNA, and it's not one that gets talked about in the fragrance community because of the fact that it's discontinued and hard to find. And you know me, I'm the discontinued guy. And this is Escada pour Homme. And this is a 1993 release. And without, you know, going into too much details, I will tell you this is basically Guerlain Heritage, which is one of my favorite fragrances. And it came out a year before Escada released Pour Homme. And they basically sprightened it up a little bit with a note of cognac, which I bet you if you didn't know cognac was in here, you would have a hard time identifying that it's cognac. But it, you know, now that someone tells you, you can definitely tell the cognac vibe, you could say. But it's very light. It's a light cognac vibe. It's not like Creation E, which I actually did just buy a bottle off of Rudy, Time to Musk Up. So I love dealing with the community members. So I made that Roja video, and now I bought a bottle. But I'm glad to have a full bottle of Creation E. That's my favorite cognac fragrance. This is more like wearing Heritage to me. It is very well done. It does add this vanilla note, which is not in the 26 notes that's in Heritage. So, you know, they're very, very similar. I would say I get the same enjoyment. I love this DNA. This is very true to my heart. For whatever reason, I just love it. These early 90s fragrances were just amazing before that aquatic wave came and swept everything over. I will do a full review on this, and this is the vintage where the E's are facing outwards. I believe the newer bottles, the E's are facing each other after Escada got purchased. This is distributed by Escada Pour Homme, or Escada Beauty. I'm sorry, you can see it's kind of blurry, but you can see it says Escada Beauty right there. So 40 ml bottle, the 125 mLs are going for like $400 or something on eBay. It's you know, 300, 400 bucks. If you can find someone in the community to give you a decant or something, and you like, you know, this early 90s sunshine in a bottle is what Chris from Scentland calls it, and I agree. They are very uplifting fragrances for me, especially. Check out Escada Pour Homme. Okay, on to my Chanels. Now, the first thing you will notice is I'm not going to have anything like this. Bleu de Chanel you will not find in my collection. And this collection is probably the smallest that I've shown so far. The video might not be the shortest because I'm rambling, but the collection is one of the smaller collections that I've shown so far. So let's start with this. This is Chanel number 5. This is where it all started. This is a vintage from the 80s, I believe. This is the old lipstick atomizers, as you can see. And this is a fragrance that I actually really struggle with wearing, especially the EDT. It's so floral. It obviously has those Chanel aldehydes in the top, but it has this yellow flower feel that I have a couple iterations of this, by the way. This was created in 1924 by Ernst Beau, one of the greatest perfumers of all time. This is the Eau de Cologne version, which, if I have to be honest, I prefer the Eau de Cologne more than the EDT. The Eau de Cologne is a little bit more wearable for me. Not that I wear this DNA very much anyways. It still has the yellow flowers, the lang lang, and the famous, you know, Irish jasmine, rose, orris root, lily of the valley, floral heart that it's, you know, famous for. But it adds this civet in the base. It feels, it just feels a little bit more masculine. The oak moss is turned up a bit. And so you can find these Eau de Cologne bottles floating around. You know, look at how beat up it is. You can find these old bottles floating around for a song sometimes. I think I paid 20 or 30 bucks for this, a year and a half ago or something. And, you know, you're taking a chance that maybe the juice isn't the best in the world, but if it's 20 or 30 bucks, you know, whatever it may be, it's not gonna break the bank. And this is probably my favorite version of number 5. They also have this, which is called number 5 Low, which is kind of a lighter, more citrusy version. I'm not a fan, to be honest with you. These two I struggle with. The Eau de Cologne is probably my preferred, but, you know, this is the best-selling fragrance of all time. So as an enthusiast, as a collector, it's something that you should definitely be able to get your nose on and smell and understand, you know, what that, what the most famous fragrance of all time basically is like. Okay, so next, we're going to move on to a decant that I have, and this is one of the only Chanel designers that I have. Well, there's one more, I think, coming up. It is Chanel Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme. Basically, I bought this because I live in Texas, and as far as, you know, summer wear, if you just want something crowd-pleasing, I just wanted to see what all the fuss was about. It has mint and orange in the top, and then pepper and tonka musk, sandalwood, and cedar in the base. It is very mass appealing, but for a designer, you know, if someone came to me and said, hey, you have to wear the original Sauvage or Bleu de Chanel or this, I would probably still pick this. Although I did mention I like the Parfum version of Sauvage yesterday in the Dior video. But check this out if you're into, you know, mass appealing scents. It is well made. It was made by Jacques Polge, so you know it was well made. There's a lot of his creations on this list. But this is one of the only designers that I have, Allure Homme Sport. It's the Eau Extreme. Probably the best of the bunch, in my opinion. Okay. Next, on to one of the masculines that originally came out and set Chanel on the map for masculine fragrances. This was created all the way back in 1955 by Henri Robert, and this is Pour Monsieur. And this is a newer bottle, by the way, I think. Let's see, where's the batch code at? I won't be able to find it now, of course, but this is a newer bottle. I think it's only a couple years old. And if you've watched some of my other videos, you know that I've said that I struggle with this fragrance. I have the other iterations that I'm going to show you, but this DNA, this heavy, you know, Sicilian lemon is what Fragrantica says. I just get this citrus, you know, bright feel that on me disappears in 30 minutes. I know, you know, people will take offense at that and say, no, it lasts. It's just very light and close to the skin. It is. In the old days, gentlemen weren't supposed to project. You know, a man wasn't supposed to wear fragrance. And so this was supposed to be something that, you know, a man put on. And, you know, unless his wife hugged him and gave him a kiss on the cheek, you're probably not going to walk through the halls and smell this. You know, it's just that very old school DNA. When I think old school, I think this. I think Eau Sauvage, which I didn't pull out. But I did pull out a couple of other fragrances that I think you can try if you like this DNA. Number one is Tiffany for Men. This was also made by Jacques Polge, and this is supposed to look like a belt buckle. If you kind of see right here, like a man's belt buckle, if you turn it sideways. Cool little bottle, discontinued, of course. This is almost like that same Pour Monsieur DNA, but with a much heavier base. It's got this warm spiciness to it that appeals more to me than, you know, the extra citrus heavy Pour Monsieur. I think this was made in '87. Don't quote me on it. I don't have it up right here in front of me. But that's one that you can try. Another one that if you don't want the heavier base, one of my subscribers, Michael, said this is much heavier, and it is. And if you don't want that heavier base, but you want something a little, I think it's a little bit more refined. It's a little more interesting. Try YSL's Pour Homme. This is the old bottle. They don't make this anymore with the built-in sprayer. They moved it to the square bottles that M7 ended up being moved into, and then I think they nixed that whole line. But YSL Pour Homme to me is just a little bit more interesting. It's a little bit more sharp. It's longer lasting. It still has that same DNA. I still drench myself with these when I wear them. I mean, I just go to town, honestly, because it's just something that it doesn't get me excited. But I will wear them from time to time. But YSL Pour Homme is another one that you can try if you like this DNA. And then also there were some flankers that came out from Pour Monsieur. And for a fragrance that I'm saying I'm not a big fan of, I have all of them. The first one is the Chanel Pour Monsieur EDT Concentrée. I don't know if you can see that. The Concentrée. This version's discontinued, actually. It was also created by Jacques Polge, I believe, and it came out in 1989. And this has real oak moss in it, is the reason why I bought it. It has that same DNA, but they added oak moss. They added a Papanex, which is basically like sweet myrrh in the base. And so I like this more, obviously. And then they nixed this, and they issued what was called the Eau De Parfum. You can see it right there down at the bottom. It now says Eau De Parfum. And they released this, I believe, in 2016. So this is the modern iteration. And I actually think they did a very good job. If I had to choose which ones were my favorite to wear, it would definitely be these two, the EDT Concentrée and then the new Eau De Parfum. The old school from 1955 is my least favorite. It is very, very old school to me, and I like vintage fragrances. Just this DNA I struggle with. Okay, the only other mainstream designer in the list, I believe, next is Chanel Egoïste, and this is obviously a sandalwood fragrance. It's got that beautiful Brazilian rosewood note, which I love. I love that note in fragrances. And this one has sandalwood and tobacco in the base. And they, you know, rumor is that whenever they tested this with focus groups, it did very poorly. And you know, Chanel wasn't going off of focus groups back then. They were just creating and releasing stuff. And, you know, I think they released this fragrance originally. It was called Bois Noir. That they ended up, it was a flop. They had to kind of cancel it and then issue it in this bottle. It was some sort of an exclusive, I think, Bois Noir. But I'm glad to have this. It's not a vintage bottle. As you can see, the atomizer is black. We'll get to that later when we talk about one of my favorite fragrances of all time. But again, if you like this DNA, the sandalwood type DNA, there's another fragrance that I pulled out just to show you guys. It's called Geof Trumper Sandalwood Cologne. And this one gets a lot of play in the community. It's the only Geof Trumper that I have. There is no tobacco in this fragrance, but I feel like they've amped up the vanilla in the base, the patchouli and leather. It is a little bit longer lasting. The Chanel is a little bit more refined, as Chanel is known to do. But if you like this DNA, check this out. This seems a little heavier, lasts a little bit longer. This is one of the best sandalwood fragrances in my collection, and it's cheap. It is, I think, 40 or 50 bucks or something for, I think this is a 50 ml. So anyways, check this one out if you like this DNA. But yeah, I don't have Platinum Egoïste, which is the flanker to this, because I have Green Irish Tweed, and to me they are very, very similar, that DNA. That was kind of Chanel's take on Green Irish Tweed, and that metallic note in Platinum Egoïste I kind of struggle with. So okay, next is a women's fragrance. I will do a video soon of famous women's or favorite women's fragrances that I wear. This is a Recharge. Again, no cap. You'll see you kind of got to get it where you can get it when you're collecting a lot of fragrances. And this is a vintage version of number 19, the EDT. One of my favorite women's targeted fragrances to wear in the heat. This is beautiful galbanum and hyacinth in the top, and it has that just lovely powdery iris and orris feel in the mid. And then the base notes of these vintage women's fragrances is what really gets me. Oak moss, vetiver, leather, cedar. I mean, that's a masculine base. So the women of the 70s really wore some amazing fragrances, and that's why I think guys nowadays can rock this confidently, and I love wearing this fragrance. Apparently, there was a rumor that the very early bottles, the galbanum was imported from Iran, and in 80 or 81, whenever the war between Iraq and Iran happened, they could no longer source those materials. So the bottles between, I think, 1970 when it was launched, and this came out, I think, a year or so before Coco Chanel died. So she just got to wear it, you know, for a very short time before her death. But this, if you can find a bottle from the 1970s, it has that Iranium galbanum, which is just supposed to be like the best galbanum on earth. Again, it's a Henry Robert, and I love this fragrance. This is a masterpiece sheaf fragrance, and green Chiffre, which is very popular in the 70s. And this is one woman's fragrance that I will happily rock. So that is Chanel number 19. Okay, next we're gonna get into the less exclusives, and I only have a couple of them. The first one that I have is Coromandel. And this is the Eau De Parfum. I wish I had the EDT. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. But it is the Eau De Parfum. Take my word for it. And I have a lot of patchouli fragrances. I have Psychedelic. I have Kritsia Moods, Uomo, which is one of my favorite patchoulis. I have, you know, Pavarotti. I have Pierre Cardin, Pour Monsieur, the Made in France version, which is a beautiful patchouli. I have a lot of patchouli heavy fragrances, and so while this is a good fragrance, I enjoy, you know, what Jax Polge created here. It's supposed to have this white chocolate note in it, but to be honest with you, I wish I would have just bought a second bottle of this, of Le Lion. This is my true love from the Less Exclusives collection. This is in my opinion, this is the best labdanum fragrance that money can buy, period. I have a 7.5 ml of Roja's Hot Luxe, which is, you know, supposed to be his signature scent, and it's supposed to be like a $3,500 fragrance. This blows it away, my opinion. I mean, you know, this is here, Hot Luxe is here. You know, this is the best labdanum fragrance I've ever smelled. And I wish I would have just bought 2 of these instead of Coromandel, to be honest with you. They do not remind me of each other. When people say, you know, Coromandel and Le Lion smell the same, I totally disagree with that. The reason that I haven't just went, and this is a 75 ml, by the way, the reason I haven't went and got the big 200 ml is because I bought this year. And this is Creed's Venezia. You guys have heard me talk about this. This is a 2013 bottle. As you can see, that 1-3 right there signifies it's a 2013 bottle. Look at the juice. This is basically Creed's take on Shalimar. I also have a couple of Shalimars. I have the Parfum de Toilette. And so, I mean, I can smell this from right here. It is just divine. Fosco, who's one of my subscribers, actually got this fragrance and wrote back and said it is amazing, that the ingredients are out of this world. That is one thing that came out of Oppenheim's book, Ghost Perfumer, is that Olivier Creed did not skimp on materials in the old days. And I think right around this time, 2013, 2014, is when the ship really started to go down for Creed. The newer bottles, and especially in 17 when they did that bottle change, is when things really started to dive. So long story short, not getting into Creed here on a Chanel video, but that's the reason I haven't splurged and got a 200 ml backup. I might still do it, but to be honest with you, these scratch the same itch. I enjoy wearing them both. This is an 80s release, by the way. I'm shocked no one talks about this. You know, this is I wonder who made this. I wonder if it was Pierre Bourdon, because this is a masterpiece in my opinion. The bergamot in the top, the lavender, you know, or I'm sorry, the labdanum feel, the ambery feel in this, the vanilla. This also has vanilla, but it's more about labdanum, but they just scratch the same itch. I mean, whether I wear this or this, I feel like I get the same amount of enjoyment. But for a modern release, you know, Chanel just absolutely knocked it out of the park with Le Lion. It's so resinous. Some people say that there's oud in this. You know, I don't think Chanel's one of the only houses that hasn't made an oud fragrance yet. And I can smell it from here. I mean, literally, I can smell it from right here, just out of the cap. It's unbelievably strong. And I wore this once and went, I need a backup bottle. And then I never did it. And so maybe one day I will, but Le Lion, if you haven't smelled that with all the hype, please get your nose on it. It is amazing. Okay, next is one of my favorite fragrances of all time. One of my favorite leather fragrances of all time. One of my favorite castoreum fragrances of all time. If you know Chanel, you know what's coming. This is apparently a collaboration between the great Jacques Polge and Francois Demachy. And this is Antaeus. And there's a couple ways you can tell different Antaeus versions. This is one of the reformulated bottles, but not the newest one. The newer ones actually have a black atomizer. So just like I showed you this Egoïste bottle, and I said it's not a vintage because it's a black atomizer, the same thing applies here. So this is a vintage because it's a silver atomizer. But it's not the oldest vintage, and I'll tell you how you can tell. So number one, if you look right here, you will see EDT is below the Chanel. The older bottles, it's written up here, and I actually got myself one. So this is a 200 ml backup, or maybe it's 100. I can't. It's a 100 ml backup. I'm sorry. This is a 50. This is 100. And you can see that the EDT is written above Chanel. You can also see that the cap is silver, whereas the cap here is black. So there's no batch code on this bottle because it's a tester, actually. I told the story about how Anuj from Base Notes helped me. I'm sorry, Anuj from Base Notes. Anuj from Enchanté Perfumes helped me determine that this was a real bottle, even though there was no batch code on, imprinted on the bottle. Apparently the testers in the 80s, they didn't put batch codes on them. There was a box that came with it. The box was a big help in tracking it down and determining, that it is real. And there's no doubt it's real. I mean, look at this atomizer, by the way. I mean, look at the size of it. It's just absolutely beautiful. That silver, how big it is. I mean, this is a masculine. This is what Arnold Schwarzenegger should wear. This is what Sylvester Stallone in the old movies would wear. This is one of my favorite sheaths of all time for men. It has that, especially the vintage versions. The vintage versions have this heavy myrrh and clary sage in the top. And then they have this heavy castoreum, oak moss, and French labdanum and patchouli in the base. And the castoreum in this, it's the old bottles of Antaeus have this pillowy castoreum. Castoreum can smell sharp and it can smell metallic sometimes. But unlike I was complaining about Platinum Egoïste smelling metallic, I love the way that old castoreum smells on the nose. Leonard pour Homme has some of this feel to it. Van Cleef and Arpels pour Homme also has some of that pillowy castoreum. It just feels like you could fall right into it, but it's also sharp. And I love the leather note in this. Castoreum gives off this leathery feel. This is probably personally my favorite Chanel fragrance to wear. If I could only wear one, I would pick Antaeus. This is I'll do a full review on this one day, but I don't know if I have the words, honestly, to describe what a masterpiece this is. This is what men's fragrances should be. This is what men should smell like. They shouldn't smell like this. They should smell like this, in my opinion. And I'm 36, so this came out years before I was born, but I can recognize greatness, and to me, this is greatness, and I'm so happy to have two versions of the vintage. This is an 80s bottle, by the way. This is a, early turn of the century, 2000s, 2001, 2002 bottle, and very happy to have both. And so I hope this has kind of helped you identify. You can still find these floating around. I mean, I paid relatively good money. Some guy sold it to me who claims he watches Eugene's channel, by the way. I found him on eBay, and we got to talking. He told me he watches Eugene's channel. So if you're watching this, if I bought this bottle off of you, I would love to hear from you. I know who you are. Anyways, you also sold me that Habit Rouge, the vintage Habit Rouge. So anyways, I'm going to save the best for last. You people are going to get to know my trend and just skip to the end of the videos if you want to see the most amazing bottles. Let me wipe this real quick. This is the most prized possession, I would say, in my entire perfume collection, which is saying a lot, but it is, because it's just so rare. And if you know, some of you know that I have this, and if you don't, you're in for a bit of a treat, because this is a pre-barcode version of Cuir de Russie. And so this is a pre-barcode version. You can see the bottle type almost looks like the lipstick atomizer of number 5 that I showed. They then put this into the Les Exclusifs bottle under the EDT. They then reformulated it into the EDP, and the EDT is now discontinued. So this is an 80s bottle. It's actually a I think it's a 1987 bottle, if I'm not mistaken. I have a hard time seeing this batch code. It's real small. I might need a magnifying glass, but anyways, it pre-barcode Cuir de Russie, and this is another one of the greatest leathers of all time. This smells. Oh, this just smell. You know what I imagine when I smell this? I imagine I imagine Anastasia in a Russian palace at the turn of the century with a beautiful ballroom and a giant, feast laid out. And then they go outside and there's horses and there's carriages waiting for them. It just has this, Chanel exclusivity to it. This is another Ernst Beau, by the way. And it has this Chanel exclusivity, this class, this, this is what Creed wanted to be when they created their, fake history, by the way. I could totally see him imagining this, because it was made in 1924, by the way. And if you don't know what Russian leathers are, they're basically a leather accord that's made with this birch, this heavy birch accord. If I'm not mistaken, I think they used to use birch somehow to soften the leather to keep the boots from, basically hold it, to keep them from to be able to hold up longer while marching and all that stuff. The Russian army used to use birch to do that, if I'm not mistaken. And this has this birch gives off the smoke accord. That's what gives off the smoke accord in Aventus, by the way, is the note of birch. And I have other Russian leathers. I should have grabbed them. I always think about things last minute, but this bottle is, I actually sent a sample to Rich Mitch, by the way. He has the EDT, which is in the Exclusives bottle, but the discontinued EDT, not the current EDP. And he claims that he smelled this and gave me his 2 cents. And as a comparison, he basically said this is much more leathery, much more smoky, and much less floral. There is florals in this. There's iris. Iris gives it this powderiness. There's lang lang, which I don't get in this. There's a note of carnation and jasmine and rose. And, he said that the florals, there's also heliotrope, which is a big floral. That's in the base. And that might be hidden underneath this leathery birch pissy type accord. It does have this animalic feel to it as well, but it never gets dirty. It's animalic, and you can definitely tell it's animalic. That's why I keep saying horses. It has this horse, feel to it, like you're in the 1910s, 1900s, early 1900s. And, if you're going to travel, you're going to get in a horse carriage, and you can smell the animals. But you also smell this beautiful leather. And I know I've spent a lot of time on this, but I think as far as, bottles in my collection, this pre-Barcode Cuir de Russie is, this is an absolute marvel of perfumery. I paid a lot of money for this, and it's worth every penny. I paid well under what, some of those Rojas are going for. And this, is what Roja's Great Britain. This is what some of those Parfum de la Nuit fragrances, number 1 and number 2, I don't like. Wish that they were. I mean, this is what Roja is trying to be. And I don't think with the modern, restrictions on perfumers that they could make this again. This is I will cherish every drop of this. And as you can see, my Chanel collection is not as big as some of the other ones, but these are some of my favorite fragrances. This, Antaeus, Le Lion, just one of the best houses out there. And thank you for watching the video, and thank you Christopher Sheldrake and Olivier Polge for, keeping these beautiful creations alive. So I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas. It is Christmas Eve here. Merry Christmas to you and yours and the family, and happy and a safe New Year if I don't make another video by then. Same thing though, in the comments. Tell me what you think. Tell me which ones you want me to review first. I am making a list, so if you tell me what you want to focus on, I will try and do that first when I get to the individual reviews. Again, thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.